My name is Ramdas Menon. I'm part of the programming team at Indie which is based in Austin, Texas. Welcome to Diwa Shah, who has just produced her debut feature-length movie called BAHADUR the
Correct.
Brave. And this is her debut, of course, and it's already won a couple of awards at the San Sebastian International Film Festival and Mammy. And has been selected for viewing or screening at the International Film Festival of Kerala and the Pune International Film Festival. So let me just start off with a little brief preamble. Our reviewers, our team here, found the movie very earthy, attentive to detail, insightful about the immigrant experiences in Nainital, and we loved the pacing and the locale. The movie is paced in a manner that captures the nuances of life under lockdown in Nainital and the camaraderie amongst the migrant workers. So are you ready for our questions or my questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ramdas. That was a lovely introduction. And yeah, let's go forward with it.
Okay. Has this movie been shown in your hometown, Nainital, and especially to the migrants? If so, what was their reaction?
No, not yet, actually. We really wanted to do a screening in Nainital, and people, it's a small town and people came to know about it. But then we had a few commitments. There were a few premieres that had to happen. So it hasn't happened yet, but I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, wonderful. You wrote the screenplay, am I right?
Yeah.
And talk to us about your journey from being a writer of literary fiction with 2 novels in the works to writing a screenplay of this movie. What are the challenges?
I think it was one hell of a roller coaster ride, because these are two really, really different skill set, though, an outsider may feel that it has to do with writing. But once you understand the medium, you get to know that these are just ways apart. So, I was studying creative writing in Durham, and I already had graduated in English. So it was very organic for me to pursue writing or to be writing my novels. And back in Durham Uni, my professor really liked my dissertation. So that really encouraged me to then turn it into a long format. And that was primarily why I had come back to my hometown to get the novels done. But as life would have it, I got pulled back into cinema. And because of my peers and my folks who were all into films, I think in the beginning, I just took an interest because that was happening right in front of me. But it took me a while to understand that screenplay writing is way different from, say, novel or prose writing. And for that, you got to really understand the medium. It's a language of its own. And I think uh COVID pandemic really helped me, because I sat down, I watched world cinema, I watched so many films. It gave me clarity about uh how it was different from the kind of writing I was so used to, because I had only been writing prose before that.
Oh, okay, great. You relied primarily on non-professional actors for the key roles. When you recruited them, what steps were involved in quote unquote training them to be comfortable in front of a camera?
So there's a mix. There are actors who've done theater before, like the primary actors, be it Hansi or Dil Bahadur, Rupesh Lama, Rahul Mukhya. Uh, they aren't non-actors, but Rupesh had never faced the camera before, but he had done theater. And Rahul had done short films. So he was just stepping into, films or cinema. But a lot of non-actors were involved as well. Like the secondary cast is, all of them are mostly non-actors. So it was a mix. And I thought, like, what I really backed on was the rehearsals, because it was very important that everybody got the lines out of their way, got the technical part out of the way, because most of the times it's the scare of the set It's so intimidating to be facing the camera, to be facing so many people, to keep doing the takes. So it takes a while to make them comfortable, and for that I think I made sure that we had rehearsed enough. We had, like, like, Rupesh came to me a few months before we started shooting, and he was literally living with the Nepalese migrant workers. The costume stylist Komal had given him costumes. He was living amongst them. He would he would, like, even earn 700 rupees per day, and people wouldn't know that he's just been acting or he's here for a film. So he'd started prepping way before, and I think the prep really helps, because all in all, when you're working with actors, non-actors, that's the only thing, uh, that you want to be prepped really, really good.
Which leads to a segue. In many of the settings, you had all male cast sitting around, sharing tales, stories, drinking, playing cards, male bonding, let's call it that. And was it easy for them to relax and do this in front of a cast which had a lot of women behind the cameras?
Yeah, that was an irony, because my chief assistant director was a woman, my costume stylist, my DOP, me myself, and to have had all these actors and non-actors, or primarily most of them were male. um, I mean, I think it's very technical when it comes to a film set, and for it to look very organic, natural, or real, there's a lot of practice. There's a lot of prep that goes into it. So nothing that looks easy on screen has actually been easy, in the sense that obviously they weren't as comfortable as they may look, and maybe it's not the first take, maybe it's the 19th take. So it took so many takes to make them that comfortable with each other. So I'd say that it was always hard, and it is always hard, because it's not very pleasant, it's not very comfortable. There are odd hours sometimes, it's way past midnight, and especially the non-actors, they don't understand why they've been up so late. They just want to get the money and just run away. But to hold them together, to to keep doing it, I think it takes a lot, and it's not easy in the beginning. It's just that they get used to it, and by the end of uh, the last few takes, they get the hang of it.
Oh, okay. I was really impressed with the way you guys did this. I mean, it is very difficult. I've been in locker rooms out west, and the male bonding talk sometimes can get a little rough. And I was
Yeah.
impressed with the way that you were able to capture some of it, but not, some of the elements of it.
Also, when I was researching, there were these ghettos that we would go to, and it was just not only literally but metaphorically, and all kinds of dark. We would light up at least 6 torches, the phone torches, to see what is it like inside. And because of the suit, they would burn the fire. It was all dark, and there were all these men living, because obviously their families are back home. There are only 2 or 3 who get their families, and that too for a week or for a month sometimes. But it's mostly all these men living that life in those dark ghettos. And I think a lot of it also came from research, of
Yeah,
just observing them in
yeah.
their places.
Well, the migrant life is pretty hard, and there've been a couple of movies which have dealt with that subject matter recently. Moving on to the next question. In many of your scenes, you manage to convey a sense of intimacy and also distance, both physical and social. You've talked about how your director of photography, Modra, in a couple of interviews. Talk to us about a couple of scenes in the movie where your DOP, her input, helped you visualize the scene in front of you.
Yeah, I think because it was my debut film and I was very nervous, as it is, I think, with all the debut directors, and you're never really sure, because the vision is in your head, but then manifesting it is always very hard. But I think what I love about Modhura, as a person and as a DOP, is that she's very easygoing. She has no qualms about her, and the good thing is that she's had so much of experience, you know, and and she really eases you into it. Like, she won't scare you. Like, that there's never a moment where you would like fear her, or you would get scared about what is happening. It's always there's always a joke. It's a very jovial kind of an environment. So I think I'd talk about scene 5, which I think I was very nerve wracking for me. So I'll tell you what that scene is. When the migrants are all drinking the alcohol and they're peeping from that window, Hansi and Dil Bahadur are peeping from the window, and they're seeing the police, and they send this other migrant to, he's drunk and he's asking for tea, and they send him outside, and he gets thrashed by the policeman. So that was a tricky scene because I think we were doing outdoors before that, and we were shifting indoors. And I know I mean, both of us had discussed how we wanted to do a long take, but then practically executing it, I didn't know how that would work, because we needed a few cuts, but we wanted to keep that rhythm. And with mainly the blocking, I think Madhura really helped a lot, because the moment I stepped in, the way she had lighted the whole thing, it really matched my vision, what I had thought. And then with the blocking and everything, she was very helpful. It was her advice that I counted on, because I had different set of ideas, and then she said, why don't we do it like this, the way it's being done right now. And later I realized, yeah, that's quite a wise thing to do, wise thing to say. Even in Dharchula, we couldn't shoot at the border, even though we had the permission. It was a chaos. We had to wrap the shoot in 15 days, small budget films. And because of her experience, because of her insight, she said, let's not just waste time, let's just find a bridge and get this done. And even though as a director you're so attached to your film, you don't want to shift, you want to be rigid, you want to do it the way you've thought. But it's her flexibility that enabled me to loosen up and said, okay, maybe it's done like it, maybe let's be flexible this time, let's just adapt and change. So that helped a lot.
Which brings me to the last scene in the movie, which is one of the most iconic I've seen in a long while, where the sad news is shared over the phone, while in the background, the other migrant workers are dancing and singing, listening to music and all that. A very heartrending shot. Talk to us how this scene came together.
um so I had always imagined the ending like this, so it was always in the script, it had always been written like that. But and it was the last day of shoot in Nainital. So all of us had bonded, and the crew had a really nice bond by the end of that shoot. And all of that really pays, because you don't see it on the screen. But from our bonding, to the way I had envisioned it, to the way Madhura got it, the lighting, everything that we had done, the setup, the production design by Ankush, uh, everything was done. But the only difficult bit was that Rupesh had to start crying, and I just couldn't make him uh, reach that I think state which I wanted for the film. And we kept doing it take by take. And I think it became really exhausting. But what I really liked was that by the end of it, everybody had come together. So even the dancers who were dancing inside were being uh, directed by like half of like my crew, which was like inside, who couldn't step out, like the production design people. And that's what happens with indie films. It's never very uh, your department is never very particular or specific. Everybody does everything, and you just want to make this film. It's a very small crew, and it's all for the story, because you aren't getting paid enough. But yeah, that's the good part about being part of a film like that.
Mhm.
So I was really thankful to the entire crew, because we'd bonded, we'd come together. And even though Hansi wasn't reaching the state, and he wasn't being able to cry, but everything had worked out so smoothly. Everybody was done with their work, that they wanted to put in the effort for me to get the take that I wanted. So yeah, so that's the
It
story
came
of.
off well. That scene came off well. Although Hansi may not have cried, you could get the feeling that he was totally
Yeah,
benumbed by that experience and
yeah, yeah,
incapable of doing anything.
yeah.
Wonderfully
And
shot.
yeah, and
Go ahead.
sometimes I think you don't end up using the take that you think you would want, because he does start crying in a few takes later. But I realized that maybe the film didn't need it anymore. So, I think the film starts speaking to you in different ways, even while you're editing.
What does that mean? I mean, the film starts speaking to you in a different ways. Can you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, so there are three stages of it. One is when you're writing the film.
You're
There,
right.
there's a story that you think you're going to tell, and you do all that prep for that story that you think that you've written. But when you go on set, you realize that this is becoming something that maybe you weren't. This is not what you had imagined, but this is something beyond you. And by the time you get to the edit table, you realize that it's a whole different story altogether now, and you got to be retelling that story. But I mean, it has that same emotion every time, but I think it's a different story that you're telling every time you sit for writing, or you sit for shooting, or you sit on the edit table.
A few minutes ago, you had mentioned that you had family members who are in the film business, and I want to bring up the fact that your mother, Shalini Shah, is an award-winning filmmaker. So, growing up, what were the conversations around the mealtime or having tea? What was it like when you were growing up?
People would like to imagine that we talk about films, but it was just the opposite. My mother never wanted me, because they had never seen so much of limelight. They had had a life full of struggle. They were in Mumbai, they came from the hills, and they had their own ambitions, but they couldn't come true the way they had envisioned it. And, they wanted to go back to the hills after a point of time. And my mother was very particular about it. That's why she sent me to my grandmother's place, and that's how, like, I was born and brought up in Nainital with my grandmom. So I never it was never like we were having tea or discussing films, or we talking about films. It was just the contrary. I was good in my academics, and my mother wanted me to pursue economics. And she was so happy that she sent me out of Bombay, so she'd keep me out of films for as long as she could. But
Mhm.
unfortunately she couldn't. But growing up, it wasn't something that, like, I didn't like the environment of a film set. There was only, I think, once or twice I visited my father's set, and I hated the way the stars were worshipped like gods. And I just, it was just beyond me. And I think I had made up my mind when I was really small that I didn't want to do this. This was not something that I would pursue for sure. Because growing up, people do keep asking you, are you going to get into films because your parents are into films? But that was something that I had decided early on. And but I understood that there was this creative side to me, and I enjoyed writing so much that I thought maybe I was going to become a professor or start writing novels. But life has different plans.
Okay. It sounds like early on you decided that the commercial Bollywood style movie was not what you wanted. So, which is a nice point to ask. I mean, which basically, what is your overall perspective on the independent film scene in India right now?
I mean, to be very, very honest, that I think it's become more difficult. It's very sad, to be very honest, because making Bahadur was the toughest thing to do, to find producers to put money into a film like this. We have no backing, we have no public funding. But apart from that, even though we had won at San Sebastian, and we were winning after, 71 years, no Indian film had won in that category. But it couldn't do much. Like, it couldn't do much. Like, I still had to walk up to people and be like, and these are eminent people who are the so-called people who watch films like these, or like independent films, who are supporters of independent films. And I still couldn't make them watch Bahadur. And there are small films being released in the theaters, but these small films are made by big known people in the industry. So people do talk about how small films are getting a theater release, or are doing well, or if it's a good story, then it gets a platform in India, which is not true. If you see, then all those small films are being made by known people in the industry, are backed by solid people in the industry. But any newcomer or any person on the periphery wanting to make a film has no chance. We had no chance after winning two awards. So I can't even imagine what it is like for any other person.
So, an ecosystem for independent filmmaking still does not exist. Is that your opinion? I mean, at this point in
Yeah,
India.
it still does not exist, not at all. You can't do anything about it. There's no money in it. People who try doing it once, they step back. So many independent filmmakers who were
Right.
with me when I was in the journey of making Bahadur have mentioned how they don't want to make an independent film. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any money. They don't have people who can watch it, so they'd rather write a commercial film, a mainstream film that at least gets released and is watched by people, which is very sad because there's only one kind of a film or a certain kind of a film that gets that kind of platform. You would never give the audience a chance to watch a film like this. That's
True.
what Bollywood has done. Yeah.
Which brings me to my last question, which is about the future. What's next for you, both in terms of a cinematic career, a literary career? What's in the books?
So literary career, I don't think so. I've just stepped back and I've been busy with the whole movie making business. But yeah, I'm writing another film which is on the third generation Tibetan refugees. It was in the NFDC Screenwriters Lab, and I was being mentored by Claire Dobbin. And I had a very fruitful 3 months during the Screenwriters Lab. And I think I'm really thankful for the little that NFDC keeps doing, because that's how Bahadur even came to be. I can't even imagine what would happen as it is. It's so sad what is happening with independent films in India. I mean, still documentaries are getting some sort of appreciation, encouragement, and there are funds that are in place. But fiction, it's very, very sad. So really thankful for the Screenwriters Lab, and still I'm just like, let's see, you never know. Looking
Great.
forward for funding it. Yeah.
Any other thoughts you want to add?
No, nothing much. It's just that, when a film like Bahadur gets made and is watched by people, I think as an audience, because we don't have funds for marketing, we don't have funds to show these films in theaters or get them released. But if you get a chance to watch a film like this, it's really, really hard to make a film like this. And I'll tell you, most of the times, 90% of the times, the director doesn't want to make this kind of a film again. All of them want to turn away and get into the mainstream industry. This is what has happened. This is what, like, all my fellow colleagues would say this, and they've said this to me. So as an audience, if you get a chance to walk into a theater, watch a film like this, and you feel that it speaks to you, then you got to do any small thing, be it writing a review on Letterbox, be it writing putting a like out there in IMDb. I know it sounds a little frivolous, but it does help, because other than that, other than word of mouth or social media or anything else, what do we have? We have nothing. We have no funds for marketing. How do we tell people that there's a film like Bahadur that's got made, or any other film? It's extremely hard. So I'd really encourage people, when you watch an independent film and you get a chance to be a part of a festival like Indie Meme or any other, and you walk into a theater, then I think it's a duty to talk about the film if it speaks to you.
Well, I hope our indie memers are taking note of what you just said.
Thank
Thank you very much. This was a very
you
fascinating
so much,
discussion.
Ramdas.
I
Thank you so
enjoyed
much for the questions. I really enjoyed them.
it. And good luck with your future ventures, and looking
Thank
forward to
you.
see more of your products.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you.